So my good friend, Father Jeff Lorig, was here last week, and the feedback that I got from a couple of my friends in the parish said, "Boy, we had a priest here this week, and he gave a fantastic homily." I said, I could bring somebody in who gives a fantastic homily, but every so often I just like to bring somebody in who's really, really bad. That way you appreciate me when I come home. Anyway, Father Jeff is, I don't know if he told you in the homily, but one of his jobs now is as pastoral planning director, something like that. So he's doing a good job with that. He's going around all over the diocese, visiting with all the priests and all the parishes, dealing with this whole business about the pastoral plan in the diocese. And he's doing a good job with it. So today we celebrate Jesus' baptism. Now the key thing that happens at the end of the story today in the gospel is what God says to Jesus. "You are my beloved Son. With you I am well pleased." What son doesn't like to hear that from their dad? What son doesn't like to hear that from their dad? "You've done a good job, son. I love you, son. You are really," that stuff that comes from a dad, that can only come from a dad when it comes to building up a son. And Jesus hears that from his Father today. And that statement is a statement of identity. Jesus now knows who he is. He is the Father's Son. And so to apply that to the present situation we find ourselves in here in our parish in this particular time. So I bring you into a context. My experience a week ago at the Seek conference in Indianapolis was truly a very uplifting and bolstering experience for me. In fact, when I signed up to go, I found every reason to try to figure out not to go. I really didn't want to ride on a bus for 14 hours. I'm not too sure I really like being in the midst of 17,000 kids. All sorts of things kind of kept going at me like, don't go, don't go. And there were a lot of other things that were coming along the way that were kind of like, and I knew that all those things was the devil. There's no doubt about it. Exactly what the devil wants. He doesn't want us to go do those things that are going to be really good for us. So he's going to find all sorts of reasons to do that. So I knew that's what it was, and I just kind of put it to rest, and I just said, I'm going. And I believe there will be something good that will happen. 17,000 20-something old kids. Maybe some seniors in the lot, a few high school kids, but mostly college kids and 20-something-year-olds who found Christ in their lives in such a way that they wanted to come together and celebrate that for 4 or 5 days, starting on Thursday, ending on Monday. And they had a great time doing it. It was just a neat experience just to see them turned on about their faith in Jesus. And then the very first Mass that I was able to celebrate the second day, 350 priests marching in down this aisle in the room that we occupied with those 17,000 kids. That aisle, we walked down the aisle 4 abreast. 4.5 football fields long. If you weren't in shape, you better get in shape, because I was puffy by the time I got down there, because they didn't waste any time getting down that aisle. They shocked me. As I saw the cross leading us, and I saw all those priests in front of me in the procession, I thought to myself, I've never been in the military, but it felt like being in the military. It felt like I was marching into something. This event went on while the bishops of the United States were in Chicago on retreat, that the Pope asked them to do as a result of all of this stuff that's happened the past year. I found it kind of interesting that the first celebrant, the celebrant at the first Mass that I was a part of, was a bishop from England. The second Mass that I was finally, one of our own bishops did come, but there were no really any bishops there from the United States because they were all on retreat. What did I experience there? These kids came together with that desire in themselves also to change the environment on their college campuses. Because on their college campuses, they don't feel themselves truly supported in their Christian faith. They find them in small groups and among each other, and prompted by the focus kids that this is all about. The focus kids on the various campuses began this movement, and the movement has caught on fire around the nation that would bring together 17,000 kids. In fact, they had to slow the registrations down because they didn't want to break the 20,000 number. If they would have, they wouldn't have been in the room anymore. These kids brought their desire to grow in faith. They brought a desire to be joyful. As I witnessed a number of times in the booth area, you know, where you have all the different booths that come at typical conventions. Here's this group of young men listening to the gentleman speak to them about Exodus 90 and talk to them about the disciplines that go into this and about the boot camp of spirituality that you go through and about putting aside things in your life that really do dominate you. And these kids were just taking it in, these guys, you know, 20, 21, 22 years old. I saw kids visiting all the different booths with all the religious orders that were represented there, desiring to give of their lives in service. Learning how to pray, learning how to bring the Blessed Virgin Mary more into your life, learning how to pray with someone else, and not at all taking any kind of, how should I put it, giving the devil his due, recognizing that he is a force to be reckoned with in their society and in their experiences. These kids bringing their burdens that come from divorce and abuse and drugs and alcohol and sex and pornography, and they bring it there and give it over to Jesus in the sacrament of reconciliation, seeking to be healed. All of these experiences that I had over that weekend bolstered me greatly. One of the interesting things that happened on the side note was after the confessions one night, we went till like 11:30 in the evening with the confessions. Then they had a little happy hour for the priests at one of the hotels. We could go and have a snack and have a drink or whatever and visit. So I got to be visiting just Half Moon Beach with this young man, 3 years ordained from Arlington, Virginia. And I kind of felt good about the question he asked me. He said to me, he says, he could have started out as an old timer. But that was the kind of the preface of it. He says, what are the 3 things you would tell me in order for me to stay a priest? You know, he was asking me to share with him. So it was a great experience with that. Found out that he went to the same seminary that I did, Theological College in D.C. So we had a great conversation. Again, bolstered my priesthood in the process. And so it encouraged me in the direction that I am animated by as we look at all the things in our diocese, as we look at pastoral planning, and as we look at renewal in our parishes, and as we try to deal with, very honestly, the issues of the unchurched and those who have fallen away from the faith in our own parish. How do we bring back the fire of the gospel into our hearts? Because we have been damaged so much by all the stuff that has happened to us as church. And then add to that this pastoral plan that's going to be coming into effect, which isn't going to hurt us too much, in the sense that I have to become the pastor of 4 other parishes. You know, Coleridge is just going to be joining with us. But there's other parts of the diocese where there's going to be challenges, and people have to be sitting down and talking about it as they come together, for us to be able to do the pastoral ministry based upon the number of priests that really can be available for us. The Archbishop at that meeting this last Thursday said, in a kind of statement of faith on his part, he says, Jesus is and has not abandoned us. Jesus said, I will be with you always until the end of the world. and he's not abandoning us. We have to find Christ in the midst of the things in which we're dealing with. And that is exactly what I found in Indianapolis. That it is that point that it's our relationship with Jesus Christ. To have an encounter with him that is absolutely convincing and life-changing, and then to be formed as disciples from that to go out and invite others to what we have found. But unless we're convinced that what we have found is really worth something, we will never take that step to be able to ask someone. It is a challenge then for us, for our parish, to know that the ideal definition of any parish is that those on the outside see love demonstrated here so clearly that they want to be a part of that. That's the renewal that Focus is doing with these kids on the college campus. And that's the renewal that needs to happen in our church. And that's what the popes, ever since Paul VI, have been talking about when they use the phrase new evangelization. It's already happening here. When I listed on a piece of paper, I tried to write down all the names of the kids that I ran into at Seek. Those that I knew were there and those that I knew had come from our parish. And I think it's almost 24 kids in one way or another showed up at Seek from different parts of the country or whatever that have roots here in our parish. And that's a beautiful thing. That speaks highly about what we're already doing here in our parish, the renewal that's going on. The fact that we as a parish have produced as many Focus missionaries as we have, 3 active ones now at this point in time. You know, these kids who commit themselves to being Focus missionaries, to take a number of years to give themselves to this mission. They're not getting rich doing it. In fact, they're asking usually for your financial help so they can do it. But they're so convinced of what they do. And they come together as a group then, supporting each other in the process of the work that they do on their college campuses. Locally, I point to another very bright spot. I sent out an invitation some time ago to about 100 parishioners to become part of the visioning process as we move this kind of process forward in our process of how do we renew our parish, how do we get back to the very brass tacks of a relationship with Jesus Christ. So the vision community that we wish to form, would go through a training process, and I asked these people to commit themselves to 3 Sunday afternoons of training. And I was hoping for 30 or 40 people. We have well over 50 that have said yes to this. And this is individuals also from Coleridge, as we will form this vision team together. I want you to know that in my own spiritual gut level of discernment, I believe that this is where the Holy Spirit is moving us as a parish, to make Holy Trinity and St. Michael's a beacon of light to the unchurched in our area. The statistics tell us that we're pretty good at church attendance, compared to the 20% nationally, but not compared to 100%. We're just at 50% in terms of people in our parish come to church. But what's even a funnier and a more astounding statistic is when you take a look at the number of unchurched just within our county. It's half of us or more. So moving our parish towards this beacon of becoming a beacon of light and to understanding what that means, well, you know what? I just want you to go on the journey with me. I don't know where we're going with this in terms of I know exactly this particular thing is going to happen. I just know that's where the Holy Spirit is leading us, because it is where He is leading us in terms of the fact that this is where we're at right now. We cannot stay where we are. We cannot stay just saying, oh, woe is me, things are terrible, blah, blah, blah. No, Jesus wants us to move with Him into the future, and He sent us the Holy Spirit to do that. When I think about all the different things that happen in the parish that touch on this notion of growth in our relationship with Jesus and learning to pray, when I think about all the CEC groups that gather on a regular basis to share faith, if it's some at 4 a.m. in the morning over here in these chairs, or if it's in that crime room back there when they get together, or in somebody's home, when people get together to share their faith and pray together. These are the things that are the tip of the iceberg of what we want to do in our whole parish. These sharing groups, praying together, Bible studies. Anybody with a CEC experience knows what I'm talking about. But here's the challenge. Here's the challenge for us. When we become more convinced that the ones in our vicinity who have not come to know Jesus are more important than our own internal business, then we've made that jump. But we're not there yet. We're so concerned about our internal business, our survival, our money issues, our schools. We're so concerned about those things that we fail to be able to look out. All of those things need to be the tools that we use to look out. But that's the challenge of the Vision Group as we look at this and say, how is it that we can kind of put a new foundation under this and a new fire so that we're as concerned with those in our vicinity who have not come to know Jesus as we are about any concern within ourselves. When the newcomer or the visitor is the first priority over where I sit in church, then we have gone over that hump. What are the fruits that I would look for from this kind of renewal? First of all, that people would be invited back to the faith. Secondly, that the unchurched would see here something that they want. Thirdly, that we would see more vocations to the priesthood and religious life from our parish. Fourth, that our schools are renewed with young people who are accepting Jesus and can easily share that faith with one another. These are the goals that I would see as being, or these are the fruits that I would see coming from any kind of internal renewal in our parish. So this being January, that's kind of where this homily is coming from. It's kind of like, I'm pointing in the future. I'm kind of like saying, this is what we'd like to be able to move ourselves towards as we move through this next year. In the next few months, another cohort will be forming who want to go through Exodus 90. This begins on January 21st, and the formation meeting is tomorrow at 8 p.m. at my house. Exodus 90 is for men. Exodus 90 is something that I have found to be for myself extremely fruitful. It's kind of funny, I had an insight today. I just said, it's interesting. God has taken the guilt that I feel over habitual sin. I still feel guilt over habitual sin. That's beside the point. What I'm getting, he's taken that guilt and he's transferred it to a new place. Now I feel guilty if I don't exercise. I'm 64 years old. I would have never said that when I was 30. But I've learned something from this. It's released something in me. It's made me a better person. Avante happens tomorrow at the KC Hall for those involved in CEC at 11:45. The next CEC weekend for men is January 25th through the 27th, and for women, February 15th to the 17th. CEC. To go through that experience is to be renewed and to understand what I'm talking about. We have our parish mission coming up in April, over and over and over and over and over again. I've been saying it in the bulletin, keep those days free, do not schedule anything on April 7th through the 10th. And one of the neat things we're bringing here during that week is the Shroud of Turin exhibition. Pictures, information, and a fantastic talk by an expert on that shroud, which is the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. And on June 8th, on Pentecost weekend, is Arch Unite, a huge event to take place in Omaha. So much so that we are not having any Saturday night masses in the diocese, and no weddings are to be scheduled that weekend. We'll be having a bus or two coming from here, and just as a little teaser, Jim Gaffigan is the humorist there. Jim Gaffigan is coming as part of the entertainment of that. You know him as that comedian. During Lent, we'll see what comes from the vision group that's forming, and then we'll go through the training over the next several weeks. It starts at the end of January and the first couple weekends in February. And we'll see where that vision team from our parish leads us when it comes to what we're going to do during the season of Lent. Becoming disciples of Jesus in name, but mainly